Frisco 911, what is the location of the emergency?
Hi, we're at Kuykendall Stadium. My friend just got stabbed.
April 2024. A high school track meet in Frisco, Texas. Hundreds of student athletes, coaches, and officials gathered at a stadium on what should have been an ordinary Saturday of competition. By the time the ambulance arrived, a 17-year-old named Austin Metcalf was on the ground beneath a team tent, a stab wound to his chest, coaches doing compressions, an Army veteran trying to hold him together with bare hands. The 911 calls came in within seconds of each other. Chaos layered on chaos. And somewhere in that same stadium, a boy was already walking away. Think about that image for a moment. Not the violence of it, but the geometry. A crowded stadium in broad daylight. A tent full of student athletes. A confrontation that witnesses say lasted only seconds. And a knife that no one saw coming. Because according to prosecutors, no one was supposed to see it at all. This is what evidence looks like when it refuses to stay quiet. If you follow cases where the official record tells a different story than what was reported in real time, you are exactly where you need to be. This is the Dark Discovery Files, where we go to the source documents, the body cam, the court transcripts, the forensic record, because that is where the truth lives. The facts of this case were not hidden. They were simply locked inside a courtroom where no cameras were allowed. Journalists sat in that room for weeks, taking notes on evidence that the public could not see. A surveillance video existed. A body cam recording existed. A confession, of sorts, existed. But for the duration of the trial, those materials lived only in the testimony of witnesses and the written summaries of court observers. The verdict came down. Carmelo Anthony was found guilty of murdering Austin Metcalf. He was sentenced to as many as 35 years in prison. And only after that verdict did the evidence begin to surface publicly.
Is the alleged suspect. Okay. I am. No, I'm not. I know how it goes. I'm not alleged. Okay.
That is body cam video of an officer arriving on scene after Carmelo Anthony had already been placed in handcuffs. And in that body cam, you can hear Anthony tell the officer that he is not alleged to have stabbed Austin Metcalf.
What we now know changes the shape of the story. Start with the 911 calls, because that is where the timeline anchors.
Frisco 911, what is the location of the emergency?
Hi, we're at Kuykendall Stadium. My friend just got stabbed.
Okay, do you know who stabbed him?
We have no clue. He was sitting in our tent, but you need to send an ambulance right now.
They're on the way, okay? Give me a description of the person that stabbed him.
He was wearing a gray Essentials hoodie. He was black. He's standing out on the track right now.
He's standing on the track?
Yeah.
Okay.
His blue sweatpants on and John.
Okay, what did he stab your friend with?
I don't know. My friend's bleeding everywhere.
Okay. Where was he stabbed at?
The chest.
Okay. And do you still see the person that stabbed him, or did he leave?
It was Austin. Austin got stabbed in the chest. I'm sorry, what did you say?
The person that stabbed him, is he still there? Do you still see him?
The first call came from someone at the stadium who reported a stabbing and gave a description of a subject still standing on the track. Gray hoodie, blue sweatpants. The caller did not know what weapon had been used. They only knew their friend was bleeding. A second call came from a coach, an Army veteran, who was already on the ground performing compressions. He told the dispatcher that Austin was going unconscious, that he was not breathing. Paramedics were directed to the northeast entrance of the stadium. The coach stayed on the line. You can hear, in the background of that recording, the voices of other people gathered around, the compressed urgency of people who understand that seconds matter and that seconds are running out. At one point, there was what appeared to be a sign of hope. Witnesses thought Austin was breathing again. The Army veteran on the ground, the one doing compressions, the one who had been trained to know the difference, testified at trial that he already knew Austin was gone.
As people are tending to Austin Metcalf, Austin would die from a stab wound to the chest. And at trial, the medical examiner said there was no way that Austin could have survived an injury that severe. Now, this is a 911 call from a coach who was trying to save Austin's life.
We have Army veteran that's trying to keep compression on the wound.
Okay. Are you with him now?
He is laying here.
How old is he?
Starting to go unconscious.
How old is he?
High school age, so maybe 15, 16, 17.
Okay. Is he awake?
No, he's unconscious.
Okay. Is he breathing?
Not right now.
Breathing.
No, he's not.
He's not breathing at all?
Austin Metcalf died at that track meet. The medical examiner who testified at trial stated plainly that no person could have survived a wound of that severity to the chest. That is not an interpretation. That is a conclusion from forensic evidence. Now here is where the geometry of the stadium becomes important. While Austin Metcalf was dying under one tent, Carmelo Anthony was already moving.
Okay.
Austin died at that track. I want to show you now the body cam video of when officers detained Carmelo Anthony, and I want you to listen to what Carmelo says and how his tone changes as he perhaps realizes what he just did.
Hold on.
And I'm just protecting myself.
If somebody is shooting the victim, they need to be over there.
Under a memorial tent.
Don't reach for anything, all right, man? Stop right there for me. Dispatch 443, I got the suspect, and they're currently treating the victim. Again, he's on the north end of the stadium. All right, any weapons on you like that? I'll look here.
How long? He put his hands up. I know I'm not.
4-4, copy, I'll be en route.
Help, y'all back up a little bit. Come over here for me. Come over here.
447, clear.
I'm gonna put your handcuffs for now, okay? Dispatch 443, everybody can slow down. I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Surveillance footage captured from a camera mounted at the top of the stadium, pointed down at the field, shows the tent where the confrontation occurred. The image quality is poor, pixelated, the kind of footage that looks like it was recorded by a device that has been doing its job faithfully for years without ever expecting to matter in a murder trial. And yet it mattered enormously. Before the footage was played in court, the prosecution called a forensic video analyst to walk the jury through what they were about to see, because without that guidance, the figures on screen would have been unidentifiable. There are colors to look for. A lighter-colored hoodie, specific shoes. The analyst traced the path of both individuals from the moment they entered the frame to the moment the confrontation occurred.
Carmelo's defense team argued at trial that Carmelo was invited under the tent, that he had a friend of his girlfriend who was on Austin Metcalf's team, and that friend had waved him over. Now, the state argued that Carmelo never should have been under an opposing team's tent and that he refused to leave when he was told to go, and that led to a confrontation and a shove that turned to murder.
What the footage shows at the 7-minute and 59-second mark of the recording is a shove, a push with enough force to register even through the degraded quality of the image.
The prosecution even prefaced before they played it, like 2 minutes before they played it, hey, you're not going to be able to see much here. This is why we have this forensic video analyst to kind of talk to us about how he identified who and, you know, the other different angles of coming in the gates. And we saw Carmelo in a lighter colored hoodie and Austin in these colored shoes. Like, he walked through all that before you got to the moment because he had to, because if there was none of that, you wouldn't know who you were.
What it does not show, because there is no close-range footage of the tent at that moment, is the stabbing itself. The stabbing happened too fast for bystanders to process in real time. Witnesses testified that they looked away, looked back, and Austin was already on the ground. They did not know he had been stabbed until he lifted his shirt and there was blood. The knife made that possible. This is the detail that carries the most weight, and it was demonstrated physically in the courtroom. The prosecution brought a replica of the weapon to the stand during an officer's testimony. The original was preserved as evidence. The replica was passed between the prosecutor and the officer in front of the jury box, close enough for jurors to reach out and touch it. It is not a small knife. It is not a utility tool or a camping accessory. Officers who carry similar knives on duty use them to cut seat belts in emergency situations. It can be opened with one hand.
Hey, there's still blood and bone fragments on this knife, you know, when they saw it in the bleachers, because, you know, there was that rumor around that it was a cleat tool that he stabbed him with. And so that was swiftly debunked inside the courtroom. No, this knife is on body cam. Here it is on pictures with blood still kind of on it. Anyway, when they brought the replica knife up, got brought up during an officer's testimony. And so the prosecutor and the officer got in front of the jury box, right in front of the jury, feet away. They could reach out and touch them, just showing the knife how you can, the thumb stopper, you can flip it up with one hand if you wanted to, because that was another thing about the speed at which this stabbing happened. Some kids said they turned away, they looked back.
The prosecution's theory was that the knife was already open inside Carmelo Anthony's bag before the confrontation reached its peak, that he had his hand on it, that the speed of what followed was not an accident of anger, but the result of preparation. The defense disputed this. There was no definitive forensic evidence proving the knife had been opened inside the bag. But consider the speed. Witnesses said it happened in 2 seconds.
3 seconds later, you see Carmelo, who is highlighted and spot shadowed, run, to the 3 or 4 or 5 bleachers up, which is also where the knife was found. That's where the knife was found, where they threw it and the body cam caught it up. But then you see him running away. But that's about the only, distinguished individual we see in that video. But of course, what stands out is just the moment itself, because the minutes leading up to the moment are just, people are just there. It's just these humanoid figures under the tent. You see people walking by. There's not really much of a commotion happening outside of the shove. And even when you watch the moment of the shove, you don't really see too much going on outside of the
The prosecution's theory was that the knife was already open inside Carmelo Anthony's bag before the confrontation reached its peak, that he had his hand on it, that the speed of what followed was not an accident of anger, but the result of preparation.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
What's happening right now? Victim is over here on the north end. They got staff standing to him right now. This is the alleged suspect. Already searched them.
The first officer on scene detained Carmelo Anthony and placed him in handcuffs. A second officer arrived shortly after. In the body cam recording from that second officer's arrival, Carmelo Anthony is already secured. He is sitting. He has been searched. There is blood visible on his hands.
All right, see a little bit of blood on your hands there, okay? All right.
402, I'm on scene.
So your first name is Carmelo?
Yes,
Let's see, hold on one second.
Is he gonna be okay?
I don't know yet, man. Carmelo, C-A-R-A. K-A-R. M-E-L-O. Carmelo, what's your last name? A-N-T-H. O-N-Y. Where are you in?
I'm in 12th grade.
10th grade? You go to Emerson?
No, sir.
Where do you go? Centennial. Okay.
I'm in 12th grade.
12th grade?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, Centennial. All right, sit tight for me real quick, bud, all right?
And before the officer has fully taken in the scene, before the formal interview process has begun, Carmelo Anthony says something to the officer that is now part of the public record. He is told that he is the alleged suspect. He responds by rejecting the word alleged. He says he knows how this works. He says he is not alleged. He says he did it. That is not a paraphrase. That is what was captured on body cam and later described in police documents and confirmed in courtroom testimony. A 17-year-old boy, in handcuffs, blood on his hands, tells a police officer within minutes of the incident that he is not alleged to have done anything. He did it.
The coach who said, well, if he dies, you're going to change your life forever. And it's like there's moments where Carmelo Anthony is so calm to the point where he can say, it's not just I'm not alleged. He says, hey, I know how this goes. I'm not alleged. I did it. But then as he gets cuffs, there's like this shot of emotion and you hear him in this like kind of weeping voice. But then like within 15 seconds, he's saying his name very calmly to the police. It was just, again, he's probably in shock with kind of realizing what was happening in that moment.
This is what the evidence sounds like when it refuses to be softened. There is more on that same recording. About 15 seconds after that statement, in a voice that sounds nothing like the calm declaration that preceded it, Carmelo Anthony's composure breaks. He is audibly emotional. He is weeping. And then, within seconds of that, he is spelling his name for the officer, giving his grade level, naming his school. Composed again. Calm again. Observers in the courtroom noted that the jury visibly reacted to the crying. Some looked at each other. It was the first crack in an otherwise flat emotional presentation from a defendant who had sat largely without expression throughout the entire trial. The prosecution's response to the moment was to question whether the emotion was genuine or performed. The defense, presumably, would have leaned into it as evidence of remorse, of a teenager in shock. But the jury had already heard the statement that preceded it. And they had the timeline. 1 minute after the stabbing, Carmelo Anthony was near the exit of the stadium. He did not leave. He turned around. He found a coach and walked alongside him on the track. The defense argued this demonstrated consciousness of wrongdoing without intent to flee, that he stayed because he knew what he had done and was not trying to escape it. The prosecution argued he was attempting to blend in, to reduce his visibility in a crowd that was already pointing at him. There was a coach, a woman from a different school, who saw students running toward her saying it was him. He stabbed somebody. She looked at the coach walking alongside Carmelo Anthony and told him not to let him leave. That coach put his arm around Carmelo, not forcefully, gently, the way an adult steadies a frightened kid, and asked him what they were saying he had done.
Stab somebody, don't let him leave. That's when that coach kind of like puts his arm around him, not like in an aggressive way, just like, hey, son, come here. What are they saying you've done? What have you done? And that's when, as we were talking before a few weeks ago, how that coach was like, hey, what have you done? Hey, he put his hands on me. I told him not to. Well, if that kid dies, your life changes here forever today. Carmelo's like, oh, he's not going to die. And the coach is like, okay, but if he does. And that's when that coach said he started crying.
This is what the evidence sounds like when it refuses to be softened. Carmelo Anthony told that coach that Austin had put his hands on him, that he had told him not to, that this was something that happened to him, not something he had done without provocation. The coach then said something that was repeated in testimony and that hung over the rest of the trial. He told Carmelo that if that boy died, his life would change forever. Carmelo Anthony's response was that the boy was not going to die. Austin Metcalf was already dead. This is what the evidence reveals when you follow it all the way to the end. The trial also surfaced a credibility dispute around a witness who had been central to the defense's theory of the case. The defense argued that Carmelo Anthony had been invited under the opposing team's tent by a friend, a teenager named Eddie, who was on Austin Metcalf's team and who knew Carmelo through a mutual connection. The implication was that Carmelo had a reason to be there, that his presence was not an intrusion, and therefore the confrontation that followed was not a premeditated event triggered by trespass. When Eddie took the stand, called by the prosecution, he testified that he and Carmelo were not close friends, that their relationship was minimal. The defense then produced photographs, not one or two, multiple images showing Carmelo Anthony and Eddie together at Eddie's home, at family gatherings, playing video games, making the kind of unself-conscious faces that teenagers make when they are comfortable with one another. The credibility damage was visible. The defense had demonstrated, through the prosecution's own witness, that the witness's account of their relationship was difficult to reconcile with the documentary evidence in front of the jury.
Of Eddie and Carmelo, and I was not anticipating them to look as friendly as they do in these images, where it does raise some questions as to why he wasn't more straightforward, it seems, in that moment, that he knew Carmelo Anthony through his girlfriend and they had hung out before. I mean, there's a picture here of them playing Guitar Hero together, which was not something that I was anticipating just based off what he had told the jury when the state was questioning him.
But the jury ultimately weighed that discrepancy against everything else. Whether Carmelo was invited into the tent or not, whether he was welcomed or asked to leave, the outcome did not change. A boy was dead. The defendant had blood on his hands and a knife in the bleachers and a statement on body cam that he was not alleged to have done anything. He did it. The appeal has been filed. Carmelo Anthony's legal team has put the court on notice that the conviction will be challenged. What specific grounds those arguments rest on has not been fully made public at the time of this recording, but the process is in motion. The case is not, in the legal sense, closed.
It is. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, because it was just, as you watch all this, you're also realizing, like, this is Austin Metcalf's final moments, and this is Carmelo Anthony as a free person, and I know he was out on bond, but now 35 years, if he serves the full sentence, he'll be out in his mid-50s, and just to kind of see all of it now and put it together, it's just, it was a lot to take in. Cody Thomas from Court TV, great job covering this trial. Thank you, as always, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Man, as always, I appreciate you for having me, man. Happy to do it.
What is closed is Austin Metcalf's story. He was a high school student at a track meet. He did not go home. His coaches tried to save him on the ground while a 911 dispatcher stayed on the line. An Army veteran pressed his hands against a wound that the medical examiner would later say was unsurvivable. And somewhere in the evidence record of this case, in the body cam and the surveillance footage and the court transcripts that are now part of the public record, is a complete account of how a Saturday afternoon became a crime scene. The full case record, including testimony transcripts and evidence descriptions documented through official court proceedings, is accessible through the Collin County Court System's public case filings. If you want to understand how this evidence was built and argued, that is where the primary record lives.